Join me as I dive into the hidden history of the Ohio Valley and see if I can uncover the untold stories of the natives, settlers, and the wars that shaped this region. The Ohio Valley, today a place of quiet towns, peaceful farmland, and flowing rivers. But if you pause and listen to the wind and feel the earth beneath your feet, you might sense something more. This land once cradled a thriving civilization. Native American tribes lived in harmony with the earth, building their lives around its rhythms. Yet, as European settlers began to arrive, drawn by the promise of new land, a delicate balance was shattered. For the settlers, the Ohio Valley was a place of hope and opportunity, but also danger. They faced the unknown, a harsh wilderness, uncertain food supplies, and ongoing wars, not only with native tribes but between rival European powers. What was seen as a place of promise quickly became a place of bloodshed. In places like Williamsburg, Batavia, and Milford, this violent struggle for survival would shape the very fabric of Ohio's future. Living with the land, the heart of Native American life. Long before European settlers arrived, the Ohio Valley was a place of abundant life. The Shawnee, Miami, Delaware, and other tribes called this land home. They were not just its inhabitants. They were its stewards. The natural world guided every aspect of their lives, from farming to ceremonies. The land wasn't something they owned. It was sacred, something that sustained them as they sustained it. Native peoples of the Ohio Valley were skilled farmers. They planted corn, beans, and squash, crops that worked together in harmony. Corn provided a structure for beans to climb. Beans enriched the soil. Squash shaded the ground, preventing weeds. This was more than agriculture. It was survival. It was their way of life, deeply connected to the cycles of nature, a balance so delicate that only centuries of knowledge could maintain it. For the early settlers of places like Williamsburg, Ohio, this fertile land was both a promise and a peril. Established in 1796 as the first settlement in Clermont County, Williamsburg was founded by William Lytle, a surveyor and land speculator. Lytle, known as the father of Clermont County, saw the potential of the land, but the area held deep roots in native history, as evidenced by the presence of ancient earthworks and mounds. In the vicinity of Harmony Hill, now a historic site in Williamsburg, two Native American mounds once rose from the landscape, testaments to the ancient people who had lived here long before the arrival of settlers. Though these earthworks are now on private property and largely erased from the surface, they were part of the indigenous people's complex cultural and ceremonial life. The land that William Lytle and other settlers claimed was, in many ways, still tied to its native past. Sacred sites and ceremonial significance. The Ohio Valley wasn't just a place to live. It was a spiritual landscape. For the tribes who lived here, the land held deep cultural and sacred significance. Scattered across the valley were towering mounds and intricate earthworks. These structures, some standing over 60 feet high, were more than just burial grounds. They were aligned with the stars, the seasons, and the solstices. They represented the cosmos itself. The Great Serpent Mound, stretching across the landscape like a slumbering giant, was a place of immense power. Each curve of the serpent's body held meaning, each twist aligned with celestial events. Imagine the ceremonies that took place here, the songs, the prayers, the rituals meant to connect with forces greater than any one tribe. Here, life and death met in harmony, and the people felt their connection to the earth renewed with every cycle of the sun and moon. The early settlers, however, did not see it this way. In places like Milford, Ohio, settlers often unknowingly built their homes and roads over ancient Native American ceremonial sites. Established in 1806, Milford became one of the early settlements where the landscape was reshaped for roads, homes, and farmland. These mounds and earthworks were obstacles to the settlers, something to be cleared away to make room for their growing town. A settler once said, "We are building for the future. The past must make way for what is to come. But to the native peoples, these mounds were sacred, remnants of a time when their ancestors lived in balance with the earth. The destruction of these sites would erase centuries of history, but their presence still lingers beneath the foundations of the modern towns that have grown in their place. Then, at Harmony Hill, where Little built his estate, traces of these mounds can still be found, though their physical presence has been diminished. Today, the Harmony Hill Museum preserves the memory of Williamsburg's early days and the Native American heritage that predates them, offering a glimpse into the past that shaped the region. The allure of a time lost. Walking through the Ohio Valley today, you can almost feel the whispers of a time lost. These mounds, these remnants of a once great civilization, are echoes of a people who understood the land in ways we've forgotten. They knew the stars. They knew the seasons. They knew how to live with the earth, not against it. But as settlers moved in, the delicate balance the native tribes had cultivated for centuries began to unravel. The land was an untapped resource to the settlers, something to be tamed, conquered, and bent to their will. Yet with every tree felled, with every field plowed, the land's history was erased, forgotten beneath the foundations of new homes. The past was buried beneath towns like Batavia, Ohio, where settlers sought to create new futures, unaware of the deep, ancient history beneath their feet. The wars that changed the valley. The Ohio Valley wasn't just a place to settle. It became a battlefield. For decades, wars played out across this land between European powers, Native American tribes, and eventually, the United States. The French and Indian War in the mid-1700s saw French and British forces clash for control of the region, with native tribes caught in the middle. The settlers watched with unease as armies marched through their fields. They were pawns in a greater struggle between kings and nations. One settler wrote, "This is not our fight, yet we are drawn into it, as though the valley itself thirsts for war." And war, indeed, became the valley's shadow. It touched every home, every field, every tree. The valley became a place of blood, where alliances shifted, and no one knew who was friend or foe. The Grassy Run Skirmish, 1792. In April 1792, a band of Shawnee warriors led by a name still unknown to white settlers, Tecumseh, stole a herd of horses from the Maysville, Kentucky area. They crossed the Ohio River into Ohio territory, unaware they were setting the stage for a confrontation that would echo through the valley's history. Simon Kenton, a well-known scout, wasted no time in gathering 36 men to pursue the Shawnee. Though ordered to avoid hostilities, Kenton pushed forward, intent on revenge for the theft. But the journey took its toll. The fear of the unknown gnawed at the hearts of his men. During the night, 12 of his companions deserted the camp, slipping back across the river to Kentucky, leaving the rest to face whatever awaited them in the Ohio wilderness. The lone Shawnee rider, gravely wounded, lay beneath the cold, damp earth. But with his last breath, he uttered a name that would haunt the men for years to come. Tecumseh. It was a name they had never heard before, but it was one they would not soon forget. He swore this unknown figure would avenge his death. As the rain fell, driving the Shawnee into their tents for shelter, Kenton and his remaining men waited for the cover of night. After midnight, they attacked the camp, firing wildly into the tents, hoping to catch the Shawnee off guard. But Tecumseh, already a leader of uncanny skill, realized from the sound of gunfire that the attacking party was small. Tecumseh rallied his warriors, calling them to arms. His quick thinking and strategic mind turned the tide of battle almost immediately. The settlers, realizing they were vastly outnumbered, scattered in terror. Fear and disorganization overtook the frontiersmen as Tecumseh's warriors drove them back into the night. The Shawnee held the field as the rain continued to fall. Though not widely known in history books, This skirmish at Grassy Run was the most extensive and last significant battle between settlers and the Shawnee in Clermont County. It marked the beginning of the end for the Shawnee in the region, setting the stage for their eventual removal from the southwestern corner of the Ohio Territory. By 1811, the Wyandot tribe established a village at the battle site, marking it as the last Indian village in Clermont County. Though the Shawnee were forced from their ancestral lands, the memory of Grassy Run lingers in the fields, the trees, and the riverbanks, whispering stories of a time when the valley was theirs. The lost treasures of East Fork Lake. But the stories of the Native Americans who lived in this valley do not end with battle. Beneath the calm waters of East Fork Lake lies a forgotten world. During the lake's construction as part of a flood control project in the 1970s, archaeologists uncovered more than 20 Native American sites. These sites, which included ancient mounds and artifacts from thousands of years ago, once dotted the landscape along the river. These mounds and countless burial and ceremonial sites are now hidden beneath the waters. Though the lake serves its purpose today, it is a silent reminder of the history drowned by time and progress. The Native American tribes of the region had lived on these lands for generations, using these sites for ceremonies, farming, and spiritual gatherings. Now their sacred places are lost to the depths of East Fork Lake. The Lost Legacy. From fallen timbers to reservation life. The final blow came in 1794 at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. General Anthony Wayne's victory over the Native coalition sealed the fate of Native resistance in the Ohio Valley. A year later, the Treaty of Greenville forced the Native tribes to cede most of their ancestral lands to the United States. The sacred valleys, mounds, and earthworks that once defined their world were now beyond their reach. For the Shawnee, the Wyandot, and many other tribes, this was not just a loss of land. It was a loss of their way of life, spiritual connection to the land, and cultural identity. Settlers now occupied the fertile lands they had cultivated for centuries while forced to move westward, confined to reservations far from the places that had sustained them for generations. Today, the descendants of the Shawnee and Wyandot live on reservations far from the Ohio Valley, including in states like Oklahoma and Kansas. The consequences of being removed from their ancestral lands have been devastating. Poverty, isolation, and a lack of opportunities define life on many reservations. Housing on many reservations is substandard. Families live in overcrowded, poorly constructed homes that are often in need of repair. In some cases, residents are forced to live in trailers or prefabricated structures that offer little protection against the elements. Even necessities like running water are not guaranteed. On some reservations, 1 in 10 Native American homes do not have access to safe drinking water or modern plumbing. Families must haul water from miles away or rely on bottled water for their daily needs, an unimaginable situation for most Americans living outside reservation boundaries. Jobs on reservations are scarce, with unemployment rates often exceeding 50%. Many who can find work do so in low-paying seasonal jobs that provide little stability. The lack of economic opportunities leaves families trapped in a cycle of poverty that has persisted for generations. In addition to economic challenges, the educational system on many reservations is underfunded and overcrowded. Schools are often outdated and lack the resources that schools in wealthier areas take for granted. This limits opportunities for children growing up on reservations, making it difficult to break the cycle of poverty. Health disparities are also a significant concern. Native Americans face significantly higher rates of diabetes, heart disease, and substance abuse than the national average. Many families must travel long distances to access health care, as clinics and hospitals are few and far between on many reservations. Despite these challenges, the Native American people continue to fight to preserve their culture, traditions, and way of life. Yet, unlike other groups that have shaped the history of the United States, Native Americans do not have a nationally recognized holiday to honor their contributions. The country that once sought to erase them from its landscape has yet to acknowledge their enduring presence fully. While the United States proudly welcomes immigrants from all over the world, celebrating diversity and recognizing the contributions of many nationalities, the Native Americans, the original inhabitants of this land, are often hidden away, Their struggles and histories seldom spoken of in the national conversation. There is no Indigenous Peoples Day celebrated on a national level, no federal holiday commemorating the tribes that lived here long before the arrival of European settlers, and Native Americans' rich history and contributions are not woven into the fabric of American society in the way that other groups are honored. The lands of the Ohio Valley may no longer belong to the Shawnee, the Wyandot, or the other native tribes who once thrived here, but the legacy of their people endures. These mounds, these sacred sites, are a reminder of the deep connection they had with this land. And while their physical presence may have been pushed far from these valleys, their spirit remains woven into the very fabric of this place. The battles, wars, and treaties may have reshaped the valley, but they couldn't erase the wisdom of the people who called this land home. The echoes of the Ohio Valley are still with us. All we need to do is listen.